Hello, my name is Tony. However anyone sells it, prison doesn't look like too much fun to me. Not even with the traditional perks of all those widescreen TVs, games consoles, 3 cooked meals a day, alleviation of financial worries, internet porn, gym time, drugs, and communal showers, wherein the advent of shower gel should nowadays have eliminated all those awkward moments. You know, I say old chap, I seem to have dropped my soap. Would you be a dear and just pick it up for me? I mean, you'd feel obliged to comply with a cheery, hey, sure, no problem, butch. Whereas now you can say, why don't I spare you a squirt of my shower gel instead? Right into your eyes, nose and throat while I run like fuck, you serial killing ass raping freako. Doesn't hold much appeal for me. The closest I've come to an extended hostage situation in which most freedoms, autonomy, rights and self-respect are curtailed is marriage. I don't know if prison would be worse, but I'm not all that keen on taking the chance it could be, and that's enough for me. Therefore, I try for the most part to operate within the confines of the law. Yep, alright, nothing was ever proven, no charges stuck, and I did say for the most part, don't split hairs. Someone who's no stranger to prison is Max Dembo, the character played by Dustin Hoffman in Straight Time. Dembo, a lifelong blagger, has just been released after completing a 6-year stretch in a prison in LA. With a rap sheet stretching back to his juvenile days and a bunch of criminal associates his only social circle, Max is an unlikely candidate for rehabilitation. But this time, he's resolved to getting a job and going straight. But will society and their agents let him? Firstly, there's his parole officer, Earl Frank, M. Emmett Walsh. Frank is a condescending, arrogant, jobs-worth empathy vacuum. He's the big man who's in charge and makes all the decisions, and Max just says, yes sir. You know the type, right? Invisible badge proclaiming I'm the boss, stamped in capitals on his smug, supercilious face. Little man with a big ego, one whiff of power and he's off to invade Cuba. Max gets off to a bad start with him staying in a hotel instead of going to the halfway house as stipulated. However, Frank allows that if Max gets a job by the end of the week, he can remain in his roach-infested hotel room. Good luck with that. I've been trying to get a job since the end of March. At the employment agency, meet Secretary Jenny, Teresa Russell. There's an attraction between the two and she helps Max find employment in a dead-end, low-wage job at a canning factory. He invites her on a date and their relationship advances from there. Actively seeking out his old criminal friend Willie, Gary Busey, Max goes for dinner at his place. Willie's wife, Selma, Kathy Bates, asks him to keep his distance as she fears Max is a bad influence on Willie, who is supposed to be going straight. Max is saddened but agrees. After driving Max home, Willie, not entirely straight after all, cooks up some heroin in his hotel room, despite knowing such activity could land Max with another 3 years on his sentence. When Frank runs a spot check on the room, he finds a burned out book of matches and suspects Max of taking drugs. He has him rearrested and thrown back in the slammer for narcotics testing. Released after some time as the process runs slow, and after being pronounced clean, Max is collected by Frank. He's lost his job and his hotel room, and Frank is going to take him to the halfway house. When Frank smugly advises Max should be grateful he's not pushing for the identity of whoever did drugs in his room, Max snaps, assaults the parole officer violently, and handcuffs him to a dividing fence on the highway in broad daylight, with his pants around his ankles. Expose dick and balls to all passing motorists. That's the sort of traffic signal they won't forget in a hurry. Max has burned his bridges and is on the run. He holes up at Jenny's place and resumes his criminal activities, first robbing a grocery store. With his old friend and colleague Jerry Harry Dean Stanton, he knocks over a bank. Fatefully, his next score is an upmarket jewellery store, with Willie enlisted as the getaway driver. When Max and Jerry emerge with a plunder, Willie has panicked and run for it. As they try to escape on foot, Jerry is shot and killed and Max shoots a cop. Max confronts Willie at his home and takes revenge, shooting him dead. He and Jenny drive away into the desert. Stopping at a service station and diner, Max reflects on what he's doing and what the effects will be on Jenny. Even though she wants to go with him, he elects to leave her behind and go on alone. She asks, why can't I go with you? He replies by telling her, I want to get caught. Max drives away. Straight Time is based on Edward Bunker's original novel No Beast So Fierce. Bunker, who co-wrote the screenplay, was an ex-con. I have no reason to doubt that he was experienced in the sort of difficulties faced by ex-cons trying to reintegrate productively and legally within society. But ever more these days, people seemingly reject the notion of self-determination and a capacity to take personal responsibility. Yeah, that sounds pompous as fuck. But be that as it may, despite the likelihood that 90% of anything any of us does is because we choose to and want to, there's an increasingly prevalent culture of, I was not to blame for any of it. Nah, not me, gov. I saw this exemplified recently in a documentary about some anonymous third-rate pop star, wherein, aided and abetted by his wife and a raft of therapists and other supporters, enablers, co-conspirators, he effectively absolved himself of any liability by concluding, I am not to blame for my substance addiction, and therefore, he reasoned, his consequent reprehensible behaviour. It wasn't me, man, it was the drugs what I took. Well, I don't buy that. I think that people who take drugs do so in the first instance because they want to, because they choose to. They may not choose to become addicts, but it's a risk they knowingly run though. Heroin is a bit moreish if you didn't know. But ultimately, the decision to take drugs in the first place was primarily theirs. Usually, there isn't someone who makes that decision for you. Hey, I've decided you're gonna do drugs. Aw man, really? You're gonna make me? Same with most anything else. Acts of violence, murder, rape, sexual assault. People choose to do these things, and a lot of the time the reason for it is no more than they want to. I was compelled, I couldn't control myself, I was under the influence of something, my mother didn't love me. Yeah, fuck off, it's what you like to do. It's that simple. I'll hold up my hands. I smoked and drank and still drink now, behaved badly on times, dabbled in this and that, because I liked it, and I wanted to do it. Any bad life choices I have made, do make, and will make are down to me and me alone. People have the right to make bad choices, you know, but not everyone has the mind to own them, it would seem. There's often a handy scapegoat to draw on: upbringing, environment, socialization, genetics, other people, poor impulse control, the weather, Esther Ranson, they're common ones. I did it because I wanted to is slipping further and further down a very long list. Rarer than a transsexual hen party at a J.K. Rowling convention. I don't deny there are always other factors of influence affecting our life decisions, but come the wet arse hour down there at ground zero, we decide and choose what we do, and we're ultimately responsible for it. We may regret it, we may repent, seek forgiveness, we may deny, we certainly may not like the idea that we're the culprit. It was you what done it, matey. But we are responsible. I know it's not fashionable enough or complex or nuanced or woke enough, but it's the baseline grassroots reality. And it's a shame that woke doesn't mean being awoke to it. World might be a better place with more honesty, accountability, and less fucking excuses if it were. Maybe. There is a distinct suggestion that Max is a guy who left prison with good intentions, but then the nasty old system orchestrated his recidivism, his revert into a life of crime. Were there no other options left available, all choices removed bar one? Was it the only thing he could do, his only possible response to circumstances beyond his control? Is he essentially not to blame? There may be a logic flaw in the narrative, because as unpleasant and unnecessary and unfair as his experiences on the outside are, they weren't quite as extreme or soul-destroying enough by my reckoning to elicit his rather brisk attitude of, "Ah well, so much for that, didn't work out, back to violence, robbery and murder for me then, they just won't let me go straight, man." And that makes me think he pretty much held two expedient equations in his head on release. One added up to plan A, take a shot at going straight, and the other to back up plan B. There's always crime if plan A doesn't work out or isn't to my liking. Is it society's perceptions and definitions of Max that make him what he is, or Max's perceptions and definitions of himself, or a combination of both? Whatever, I think a life of crime and jail time is what he chose in his formative years, and for him it is now a self-fulfilling prophecy. The quiet life was never going to work out long term. It wasn't really what he wanted. Not really. A flawed, broken system doesn't help any, but it is possible to overcome it if you want to badly enough. In support of this theory, I would cite Exhibit A, Max's friend Jerry. He's got it made. Cool wife, nice house, swimming pool, grilling cheeseburgers on the barbecue in the sunshine. Sweet. But it isn't what he wants. He wants the adrenaline rush, the hit, the high, the endorphin and serotonin saturated nitro-charged chemical blast of pulling off a heist and getting away with it. Otherwise, he feels he's suffocating and stagnating in a fake suburban prison. He's a risk-taking career criminal at heart, and that's what he wants to be, what he chooses, his aspiration and his downfall. With all that out of the way, although it wasn't a financial success, Straight Time is a potent and thoughtful neo-noir crime drama. Hoffman, who was originally going to direct, takes on the sort of role that would have normally found its way to De Niro, Pacino or Keitel at that time. With shoulder-length hair and a porno moustache, he impresses without undue sentiment as a wired and bristling criminal type, when he could just as easily have drifted his performance into caricature. Hoffman's a skilled enough screen actor to get a ruthlessly tight handle on the character, warts and all, and in keeping with his criminal bedfellows in the movie, goes all out to portray Max as a person rather than some psycho whack job. Real people are always a scarier proposition than fictional loopholes. Busey and Harry Dean Stanton's characters are equally drawn with an intense natural realism, and it's a real shock at first when you realise that that's a young Kathy Bates playing Busey's wife, a very slim and svelte young Kathy Bates. I never realised it was her until this more recent viewing. I never realised she was thin once. M. Emmett Walsh is wonderfully despicable as the reptilian parole officer Frank, and I defy anyone to suppress their knee-jerk satisfaction when Hoffman beats on and humiliates him spectacularly. A fresh-faced and achingly gorgeous Theresa Russell before she became Nicholas Roeg's paramour and muse is emotionally on point as the naive and sweet Jenny. Although just what a character sees in Max to inspire loyalty and love is something of a mystery. Direction by Ulu Grossbart has a smooth sheen of edgy intensity, especially evident in the bank and jewellery store robberies, in which the tension is cranked up by the timer ticking down to the police response and Max's frustrating habit of waiting around a fraction too long. He finds it hard to tear himself away from scooping the loot, so pushes it right to the limit, jangling the nerves of his colleague Jerry and those of the audience in sympathy. David Shire's score is catchy and compelling, one of his best works, and Owen Roisman's cinematography is as slick and professional as you'd expect from this prolific craftsman. What sets Straight Time apart is the fiercely uncompromising way in which it portrays criminals as real people with real lives who, when they try to cut it on the right side of the tracks like everyone tells them they should, find themselves horribly disadvantaged. Max isn't explained or rationalised, no excuses provided, no broken home or child abuse backfill. He just is the way he is. A criminal who reverts to criminality as a default setting when things don't go his way. Or, as is strongly suggested, because the system staggers it, rigs it so things don't go his way, and sets him up to fail. How much, though, does he really want to succeed? In contrast to the bright sunny Californian visuals, it's a dark fatalistic conclusion we get, and one that doesn't offer easy solutions or much hope. Jerry's living the dream, but it isn't his dream he's living. Pursuing his own instead gets him killed. And as for Max, although we don't see it come to pass, it's strongly implied he's headed back to the slammer for robbery and murder some short way down the road. Many 70s crime thrillers ran contrary to audience expectations and seemed to suffer at the box office because of it. The cool hard vein of disillusionment running through Straight Time was a gamble, a risk, and although it was a critical hit, with luminary Gene Siskel, the Statler to Ebert's Waldorf, dubbing it the best film of 1978, audiences stayed away. Still, it's good to see that in the wake of Stark Wanks, there were artists still willing, able, and enabled to take those risks, because it left behind some great cinema for future generations to look back on and enjoy. Or if future generations don't give a fuck, they're there for me to look back on and enjoy. Thanks for your time and attention. If you could see your way clear to sticking around, I would appreciate you hitting like, don't like, leaving a comment or subscribing. Plus, there's always the opportunity to check my Patreon page for exclusive content and early access to forthcoming reviews. Or drop a tip in the virtual gratuity tin via the super thanks button down below. I really need the beer money, folks. Any help or support you can provide to the channel is greatly appreciated. It's nothing without you these days. I'll be making a return visit soon. Catch you on the rebound ferry to Alcatraz, pilgrims.